2022 is in the books, and while it was certainly one hell of a year for the UFC, it does seem as though 2023 is looking primed to be even better. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at 10 fighters who look set to make a huge noise in 2023. Erin Blanchfield. The words female Khabib have been thrown around quite a lot when the 23-year-old Erin Blanchfield is brought up. Not only does this highly skilled wrestling and grappling whiz have the type of aggressive style that would make any Dagestani proud, but in recent times, it's clear that she's only improving. Her most recent victory over Molly McCann was like watching a lamb being led to the slaughter, as the far more experienced Liverpool fan favorite was totally dominated by this blue-chip prospect. And her use of the crucifix in that fight? Terrifying. Blanchfield isn't a lay and pray kind of a fighter either. She has an urgency to her approach that sees her find the finish more often than not. The flyweight division has been crying out for a rising contender like Blanchfield for years now, and we must admit that Valentina Shevchenko may well have her hands full with this one. Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez has been flying under the radar somewhat in recent times, slowly building a resume worth being proud of within the stacked 135-pound division. Now ranked at number 13 in the division, this fast-handed American knockout artist can lay his claim at having the slickest boxing in the division at the moment. Maybe with the exception of Peter Yan. He hits hard, his movement is superb, and if you do land on him, Yanez has one hell of a chin. At 5-0 in the UFC with 4 straight finishes, Yanez looks primed to climb into the title contention with another win or two, and when he does, you can all but guarantee that he'll find himself in some violent showdowns. Paddy Pimblett. Look, Paddy Pimblett had a rough night at the office against Jared Gordon, there's no other way to put it. But despite his less than convincing performance against this mid-tier lightweight, there's every chance that Pimblett could recapture some of his early momentum with a strong showing in 2023. That will of course require him to really step up to the plate against an opponent who fans truly believe to be a threat to him. It's clear that Paddy the Baddy has some pretty major holes in his game, and that he will have his work cut out for him if he wants to make even a slight dent on the 155-pound top 15. But there's little doubt that the name Paddy Pimblett will dominate the headlines when next year comes around. Win, lose or draw, and that for our money is enough to warrant listing him here. And the dude's grappling is pretty legit, so there's that. People are very quick to count this guy out. Whether they're correct to do so or not will become clearer before too long. Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is one mean fighter, there's no way to put it. Blessed with insane punching power and a level of ferocity that is unmatched at 145 pounds right now, it may come as some surprise to know that Topuria's bread and butter is actually his grappling game. And it was that facet of his skill set that allowed him to follow the famed BJJ innovator Ryan Hall to the mat and uncork some massive fight-ending shots. He then proved his power at 155 with a vicious come-from-behind KO of Jay Herbert. But in his last outing, Topuria scored his biggest win to date, a shocking beatdown of the great Bryce Mitchell to announce himself to the top 10. This guy is legit, folks, there's no other way to put it. And though Alexander Volkanovski has his sights set on the lightweight title in 2023, if he does return to his natural weight class, there could well be major challenge waiting for him in Ilia Topuria before too long. Tom Aspinall. A horror injury in his headlining matchup against Curtis Blades sapped some of the Tom Aspinall's momentum as he moved even closer to a title shot. But like many of the others listed here, this guy certainly has time on his side. At 29, he is one of the younger members of the heavyweight top flight, and his ascent towards the upper levels of the division have shown him to be perhaps the most well-rounded fighter in the weight class. Not only does this guy have a lightning-quick boxing, but his base actually came in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's powerful, technical, and a total nightmare on the ground. Just take a look at his victory over Alexander Volkov if you need further proof. Aspinall has the means to put anyone in this division down. And if he can get you to the mat, his slick submission work can put your limbs and your neck in some real peril. A major title threat to keep an eye on whenever he does return to full fitness. Muhammad Mokaev. Muhammad Mokaev talks a big game, and it's understandable that some fans may have grown frustrated with the somewhat methodical performances he has been turning in of late. But you must remember that this kid just turned 22 a few months ago, and after a glittering run on the amateur circuit that saw him go an unprecedented 23-0, he is already past his 10th fight as a pro. For a 22-year-old to be this far along is truly a rare thing. And though his 3-0 run in the UFC's flyweight division hasn't quite been as dominant as a whole as his promotional debut, Mokaev is playing the long game here. He could spend another 4 years developing and still be knocking on the door of his prime. Too often we have watched as prospects get rushed into contests they're not ready for. Sure, Mokaev is well-rounded enough to give most top 10 fighters a tough night out already, but for our money, it seems like this Dagestani-born talent is simply working up some experience inside the octagon. Thankfully, the number 14 beside his name on the 125-pound rankings will no doubt see him tested before too long. Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev is closer to a human battering ram than a normal fighter, blessed with insane power, great cardio, and a relentless desire to inflict pain. Fiziev has proven his mettle time and time again, beating some of the lightweight division's most underrated fighters one after another to establish himself in the top 10. Renato Moicano, Rafael Dos Anjos, Brad Riddell, and Bobby Green, each man fell before this absolute powerhouse. Sure, there are more than a few tricky matchups for Fiziev within the upper tier at 155, but setting this guy up against any of them is all but guaranteed to produce fireworks. How about a fight against Justin Gaethje for starters? Both guys are fight of the night magnets, and like Gaethje, Fiziev could be said to do his best work in the later rounds. Sign this one up, Dana! Sergei Pavlovich. It's too early to say that Francis Ngannou's status as the sport's most powerful puncher is under threat, but Russia's Sergei Pavlovich appears to be packing some serious dynamite in his hands. After running into Alistair Overeem in his promotional debut, Pavlovich scored 5 straight first-round knockouts in a row, going 2-0 before spending 2.5 years on the sidelines. Since his return, the dude looks like he has hit another level entirely, and given that he is just 30 years old, everything appears to be falling into place at the perfect time. Pavlovich looks the part like a European Brock Lesnar, and now it really does seem like he's stepping up and making good on his clear potential. As for his back-to-back sub-minute destructions of Tay Tuivasa and Derrick Lewis, just plain nasty. Could you imagine how volatile a 5-round fight between Pavlovich and Francis Ngannou would be? That kind of power is so rare, and yeah, Sergei Pavlovich has an abundance of it. Arman Tsarukyan. He might have picked up competitive decision losses to both Islam Makhachev and Mateusz Gamrot, but if there's one thing that the lightweight super prospect Arman Tsarukyan has going for him, it's time. At just 26 years old, Tsarukyan is showing all the signs of a future champion. From going through 3 extremely high-level rounds with the future champ Makhachev in his UFC debut, to putting one of the year's craziest displays of back-and-forth grappling against Gamrot, Arman is very clearly one of the best 155-pounders in the world, and his most recent victory over the highly touted Damir Ismagulov only proved it. A dangerous striker with some of the best wrestling and grappling in the division. Expect to see Tsarukyan hanging around the top flight for years to come. There's a wave of extremely technical and physical fighters coming through at 155 right now, and though guys like Fiziev and Gamrot have already broken into top 8 or so, expect Arman Tsarukyan to be right up there by the time 2023 is over. Shavkat Rakhmonov. And finally, we come to the single greatest prospect in the UFC's welterweight division, and depending on who you ask, perhaps the single greatest prospect in the UFC, period. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a finisher at his core, but he also just so happens to be one of the most patient, technical, and composed fighters at 170 today. This unbeaten Kazakhstani prospect stalks his prey, barely putting a foot wrong as he downloads data. He fights like he's always on the verge of exploding, but he seems to save those moments for when they really can matter the most. Through his 16-fight career, he has scored a finish in every single fight, bringing 8 knockouts and 8 submissions to the table, making him one of the most well-rounded threats in the sport. A title threat with some major potential on his side, and whether it's Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, or someone else who sits atop the welterweight pile by the second half of the year, Shavkat Rakhmonov will certainly be an interesting matchup for any of them. There's an argument to be made that Rakhmonov is single best prospect in MMA today, and well, it's pretty hard to argue with what we have seen so far. And that will bring our video to its end, but out of all the fighters we have listed, who do you think is most likely to become champion in 2023? Let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, thanks for tuning in.